Hey guys, I am not the Seaman 235, and I guess I can talk about that in another update video, but I figured I would actually put this in front of the Sonic CD and 3K videos, so I apologize if the intros are somewhat similar. So I didn't really like how the Sonic CD portion came out, so I decided to redo it. It was because there were a couple of interruptions. I'm not going to go into it, but when I was making the video, a bunch of interruptions happened, and I figured, why not just scrap it and start from scratch? However, the 3K portion actually turned out pretty good, so I'm going to be keeping that, and I'm going to make a note of that in my 3K video. But this CD recording is entirely new. I'm not sure whether it'll come out before or after 3K, but we'll have to wait and see. All I do know is that this is a brand new recording, and I did actually change up how the retrospective is going to be, since life's a bit hectic right now and I don't always have time for editing. Basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering every main series game in their own separate video. I'll sometimes put two games together if I feel I don't have much to say about one. Like, as an example, with Sonic 1 and 2, I did them both together because I didn't have much to say about one or the other, and I felt starting off talking about Sonic with a game I don't like, which is Sonic 1, would be kind of disappointing, hence why I combined the games in two. And I might do that for some of the other games as well. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, for now, that's basically what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be covering one or two games each time, and then I'll do like a big spin-off video for the era. So basically how it's going to work is, after CD, I'm going to tackle Sonic 3K, which will be the old recording, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about all of the side games, all of the spin-offs, because I don't really have much to say about them, especially in this era. So yeah, it'll be a bit confusing. I apologize for the confusion, but hey, you'll get used to it. So let's go along this roller coaster together. After all, that's what the Sonic franchise is, basically. A giant roller coaster that makes no sense, yet we love it anyway. Isn't that right? I think I'm right. Alright, so before I start talking about Sonic CD, I'd like to actually correct a mistake I made, since this is a re-recording. You know this now. I'm not going to pretend you don't know this. The Sonic 1 and 2 video is up, and I made sort of a mistake when I said that Sonic 1 is probably the most divisive of the 2D classic-styled Sonic games. I mean, maybe it is, but personally, from what I've seen, I actually disagree with that. I tried to correct myself with text, but it clearly didn't really work very well, or at least I don't think it did. I don't know, maybe I could have edited it better, but too late now. I'm lazy. What? I'm lazy. What? This never happened. So, I said that Sonic 1 was the most divisive. I take it back. What I should have said, is what I meant to say, but I didn't say it right, was that Sonic 1 is the most disliked of the 2D classic Sonic games, at least of the ones that, you know, people really care about. You know, Sonic 1, 2, 3K, CD, Mania, I guess maybe Sonic Advance 1, I don't know. All I do know is that out of all of the 2D Sonic games that are using the classic style of gameplay, Sonic 1 is sort of the one that's liked the least. Not counting any of the Game Gear games, or Forces, or Generations, or some of that stuff. It's because of a lot of people just are, well, like me, where they don't think the level list is very good. Marble Zone is boring, Labyrinth is terrible, Scrap Brain is infuriating. You know, the levels just suck. There's only like one or two good stages, debatably, and the only one I really like is Green Hill, so... You know, it's just one of those where Sonic 1 hasn't really aged very well, and a lot of people sort of, you know, have that opinion now. I'm seeing a lot of people come out of the woodwork and saying that. So Sonic 1, what I was trying to say, it's probably the most disliked of the classic-styled Sonic games. CD, however, is the most divisive Sonic game, and yes, I'm bringing it around. Segue time! CD is very much the most divisive 2D Sonic game. Back in the day, it was sort of seen as this magnum opus, this amazing game that was barely released on anything. You know, it was a special hidden gem. The best Sonic game that no one's ever played. You know, it's one of those, people really hyped it up. But, as time went on, and as CD became more widely available, a lot of people started to turn on it, very similar to Sonic 1, but unlike Sonic 1, where Sonic 1 is generally seen as maybe not a bad game, but not a very good one, Sonic CD is very much, there's two camps. You either love it and still think it's a masterpiece, or at the very least like it, or you think it's a piece of trash and one of the worst Sonic games ever made, and anyone who likes it is a big old dum-dum. And, I'm sort of in the middle when it comes to CD, kind of, because there's technically two versions of CD that I want to make note of. There's the original releases, which, you know, are the Sega CD, which had an updated PC version, and eventually also had, you know, the PC version was ported onto Gems Collection. That was a port of the PC version, which I think I just said, so that was redundant, but oh well. I played Sonic CD first on Gems Collection, and when I played it, I said I liked it, but deep down, what I really felt like was that I didn't really like it all that much. I couldn't get very far in it, and it wasn't so much because it was hard, but more because I just wasn't getting into it. And it was because of the game's just fundamental problems, its level design being all wacky and weird, the time travel not really working, and it just being a really buggy, kind of busted release. And it's not because, like, the Gems Collection port is bad, it's a fine enough version. The problem with Sonic CD is the original releases, you know, the original PC version, Gems Collection, Sega CD or otherwise, I honestly, thinking about it now, I honestly think they're bad. If we're going by the original releases back from 1993 to, like, all the way to Gems Collection, I think Sonic CD is a bad game. I think it's terrible, I think it's broken, the physics are broken, which makes time travel a complete bust. The special stages have the most horrendous frame rate and shitty hit detection. You know, I think its level design and its decision-making in how it goes about exploration is terrible, and I just don't think Sonic CD is a good game. I would even classify the original releases of CD as worse than Sonic 1. Not just the Christian Whitehead version either, no. I mean the original Genesis version. You can immediately tell when you play the Gems Collection, like, play Gems Collection Sonic CD and then play Mega Collection Sonic 1. You will notice there is a very clear difference in physics engines, and it just feels so... It feels so broken. It just doesn't feel as good. The hit detection's terrible. Sonic seems a lot more weightless. He doesn't... Like, it's weird. He doesn't react to terrain nearly as well as he should. It just feels like a very shoddy Sonic game. However, eventually, around the time of Sonic 4 Episode 2, 2012, Sonic CD was re-released with the Christian Whitehead engine, the Retro engine, I believe it's called. This is what was used to make Sonic Mania and the Sonic 1 and 2 ports, and eventually Sonic Origins, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And the first time this engine was used officially by Sega and Christian Whitehead officially worked on a Sonic game was the mobile ports and Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 ports of Sonic CD. This is where CD went from a game that I really didn't like to a game that I actually kind of enjoy now. And it's because of a bunch of quality of life improvements. It's not as buggy, it's in widescreen, so it's easier to see stuff coming, which really helps, believe me. The physics are better, the spin dash isn't stupid like it was in the original. In the original release of CD, the spin dash basically was just, it was terrible. What you had to do is, you had to hold down and then press the jump button, but you had to wait until the charge was fully done in order to go. You couldn't just down, jump, go. You couldn't just rev it up really quickly and go. No, you had to wait for it to charge up for a bit before you went anywhere. and it was terrible. It was absolutely awful. It was such a really crappy spin dash. And, you know, you think Naoto Oshima and his team, since Sonic 2 was being made by Yuji Naka and STI at the time, you think they would have taken notes at some point, but I guess not. There is another move known as the Super Peel Out, which I'll talk about later. It's okay, but I'll talk about why I don't really care for it that much. The spin dash, however, in the Christian Whitehead version is back to its Sonic 2 greatness, where you can just down, jump, go. You can just rev it up for a little bit and just fucking send Sonic flying. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's less glitchy, the collision detection is better, my level design issues still remain, but at the very least, Sonic CD went from a game I really hated playing that felt worse than all of the classics, even Sonic 1, to a game that I can actually play and enjoy. So, if you ever decide to play Sonic CD, I implore you, play Sonic CD via the Christian Whitehead ports or Sonic Origins, because the original versions of Sonic CD are, quite frankly, not very good. At least I don't think so. Luckily, I'm going to be talking mostly about the Christian Whitehead version, which means I am going to be positive here. I'm not going to be super positive, I don't love the game, but I am going to be nicer towards it than most. I'm still very much, however, even with the Christian Whitehead port, I'm still very much in the camp that kind of just says it's okay, it's not great. But I do like the Christian Whitehead version more than Sonic 1. Another thing I figured I should mention is the footage this time around. So, I'm actually going to be borrowing footage from YouTube / using my footage of other games with classic Sonic in it. So I'm going to be mostly using footage from Sonic 1, 2, and Generations. Not so much from 3K, because I think I'm going to be using a lot of 3K footage like in the next video, because I'm going to be talking about 3 and Knuckles, so I'm not really going to use much footage from there, but I will use footage from Generations, which is my personal favorite Sonic game, spoilers, and Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. I will, however, mostly be using bits and pieces of the soundtrack from both the American and Japanese versions of the OSTs, which I can talk about in a minute. I'm saving a lot of things in a minute. I'm going to be taking songs from the American and Japanese soundtracks of CD and putting them in the background. The reason why I can't record my own footage is because I don't actually have a decent way to play Sonic CD and record it. I'm very limited in my options of recording it. I know there's a super awesome PC version, Sonic CD Restored, which is basically the Sonic 3 Air of Sonic CD. I, for some reason, just cannot get that up and running. I don't know what it is. I just can't. It's just not working for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I just can't get it up and running, and it's just not. I don't know. If I can get it running for this video, I'll try to take, footage of my own. Just record footage of my own and use it instead. Maybe I'll do it for, the updated version of this video where I have, everything compiled into, a 5-hour video or whatever, but until that happens, and if it happens, for now I'm just gonna have to use some footage from Let's Play channels and reviewers, so I apologize, and I will be crediting you guys either at the end of this video or in the description, and if I forget to do that, please let me know, because I tend to be forgetful, and it fucks me over a lot, and I apologize. It's not out of spite, it is because I'm a dum-dum. Just be aware of that. But yeah, I'm sorry for the lack of footage. It's just I don't have a means of recording it. The version I usually play is the version on PlayStation 3. Some people might also ask me, well, Cody, why don't you play on Sonic Origins? I don't have Sonic Origins. And Sonic Origins, I looked at it and I was happy it was the Christian Whitehead ports, but after Sonic Colors Ultimate, I was very wary of Sonic Team and ports, especially knowing that Stealth was only working on 3 and K. So I knew 3 and K might be good, which that didn't age very well, but I digress. But since Sonic Team was working on Sonic 1, 2, and CD, I was kind of worried about the collection. And my worries were correct. It was a collection that was rushed out the door, and poor Stealth, I feel so bad for them. They put their heart and soul into Sonic 3K as much as they could, and they still couldn't finish it up because Sega just wouldn't let them. There's a whole controversy about it. You've probably seen tons of videos of glitches and, just weird shit happening with the games that isn't supposed to happen. A half-baked drop dash in Sonic 1 and 2 because they forgot to remove the spin lock that was in the original games. Good job, Sonic Team. They even actually, messed up with song titles to where Door Into Summer was called something completely different, even though Door Into Summer is one of the most known Sonic songs nowadays because it was in Generations. How do you... The point is, Sonic Origins was just not a competently made collection. There was actually modders who wanted to go in and finish Sonic Origins for fans, and they gave up because of just how bad it was. So Sonic Origins was shit, and when I looked at it, I was so disappointed, because this should have been an easy fucking win, just like Colors Ultimate. But after Colors Ultimate, I was like, you know what? No, I'm not buying this. I already gave up on it, not pre-ordering it, but, and especially with, the DLC bullshit they were pulling, I was just like, I'm not buying this. Alright? I'm not buying it unless it is the best damn version of the games ever. It wasn't. It was terrible. And, look, maybe I could just buy it and record CD off of it, but no, I'm not buying an overpriced, half-baked collection made by a company who doesn't give a shit about their fans. I'm not buying that shit just to record one fucking game that, while I do enjoy it for the most part, I'm sorry, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm sorry. They couldn't even be fucking bothered to put in Knuckles in CD, because in the updated re-release of CD, Tails was put in as a bonus, which was really cool. But now that Sonic and Knuckles and Tails are all in Sonic 1 and 2 and 3K, they can't be bothered to put in Knuckles in CD, even though, in actuality, I think Knuckles would actually fit best in CD because of its emphasis on exploration. But no, don't do that, Sonic Team. God forbid you put in effort into your ports. Fuck the fans, I guess. Alright. I'm done. I'm sorry to drag this video down in a negativity. I just wanted to explain why I can't record footage and why I refuse to buy Sonic Origins just to record it. That's why I'm reusing footage. I don't have a means of recording it. I can't get the super awesome PC version up and running for some reason. It's just not working for me. And I also don't have an ability to record it via Origins because I didn't buy Origins. I made a stand and I don't want to do it. I bought Frontiers because Frontiers turned out to be decent. Spoiler warning, I actually like Frontiers. So don't worry, it's a good game. It's not great, but it's good. I didn't pre-order it because of that, and I was worried about Sonic Origins. After Colors Ultimate, I stood my ground, and I was correct in doing so, because holy shit. Alright, enough negativity. Let's talk about Sonic CD. Let's actually, dive into what I think about the game in full. Alright, so let's actually talk about Sonic CD finally. I know, right? 10 minutes in. From here on out, when I say I like something in Sonic CD, however, I am referring to the 2012 re-release and onwards. I am referring to the Christian Whitehead version. That is the version I am talking about. That is the main version for my analysis. So, if you want to call it that. or diatribe, you can call it that too. Either way, I am referring to the Christian Whitehead version of Sonic CD. That is what I'm talking about. So when I say I like something, or don't like something, I'm talking about the 2012 Christian Whitehead re-release from this point forward. The original version has nothing to do with this anymore. I don't like that version. You should already know that now. So from here on out, when I refer to Sonic CD as Sonic CD, I am referring to the 2012 version as Sonic CD. And now that Sonic Origins is out, that's likely going to be the version you play. Good? Awesome. Sonic CD. So, I said that I liked Sonic CD, but I didn't like it as much as people, who love it, just love it. But I don't hate it like a bunch of other people do. I am kind of in the middle. More so in the like it camp than hate it camp. But I do have a lot of problems with the game. But I will say what I like first. First off, I really enjoy the setting, the idea, and the scope of CD in the sense that it's a very... Sonic CD doesn't have a story necessarily, but it is the most environmental, messagey Sonic game you're ever gonna play. Sonic has always had layers of environmental messaging here and there. Sonic is an animal trying to save animals from a capitalist man trying to, destroy the rainforest or destroy natural plant life in order to build his own metallic city. It's very much that way, despite what Sega might be in real life. Yeah. Despite that, it was very much... Sonic always had some layer of environmental messaging in there. It's just a background thing. It's probably just to give the games a little more depth. But Sonic CD is the closest it came to being at the forefront, at least for the 2D games. Because basically the goal of it is Little Planet has been taken over by Dr. Robotnik. And if you actually go into the future without saving the past and destroying the robot generators or getting time stones, if you basically get the bad ending, if you don't go out of your way to save the future, you can actually go into each version and you can see this dark, desolate, metallic version where like all of the robots have rust, the flowers are usually metal or dead. It's just not very pleasant to look at. And it's because Robotnik took it over and used most of its resources, and now it's completely devastated. Except for maybe Stardust Speedway, which is a bit different, but that's because that's Eggman's basically throne, his city that he made. He used Little Planet's resources in order to build that, but like even then it still looks really metallic and scary looking. Like Eggman's literally destroying the environment to benefit himself, and you see that especially in the bad future. Which is why if you go into a good future, if you have the time stones, or if you destroy the robot generators and go into the future then, you can see the benefits of the future that you've created. By going back into the past and undoing Robotnik's plans, you don't just save the day by beating Robotnik, you stop Robotnik from destroying a planet and taking its resources. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's all, subtext, well, actually, no, it's not really subtext. They basically spell it out for you, just from the backgrounds alone. But, like, it's in the background, There is no cutscenes besides, like, the opening and the ending cutscene. The story's mostly just there in the manual, and it wasn't until Sonic Origins where we actually got more cutscenes. But I still think it's really interesting. I really like that. I love the idea of Sonic going into the past and creating a future that betters Little Planet, and it's really interesting. I really like that. The setting, the tone of CD is perfect. And speaking of the tone, the cutscenes. Like, I'm not talking about the Origin ones. I'm talking about the original ones. The original cutscene of CD is still, like, one of the best Sonic cutscenes ever. Like, like Sonic just running around and then seeing Little Planet being chained up by Eggman and he knows something's up. Still such a great cutscene, and I love the way classic Sonic looks. Like, he looks so fucking cool. Like, it's weird, because classic Sonic's generally seen as cutesy and adorable, but this one seems more badass and much more of a rebel, which is probably what Yuji Naka was going for, though he didn't work on the game, but that is what he wanted Sonic to be. He wanted him to be more of a bad boy, and I know Yuji Naka is a bit controversial right now. Good timing, Yuji Naka. Way to get arrested for insider dealing. That aside, I do think Sonic looks really cool here. I love his confidence, I love his cockiness, I love his attitude, but I also like how he can still get surprised. Like, the animation in these cutscenes, which I think is done by Toei, is just amazing, and I absolutely adore how Sonic looks. He is just so fucking badass. Like, they made this cute, pudgy, adorable little hedgehog look like the most badass, like, thing ever. It's really, really funny. I especially love the ending scene where we see Metal Sonic and Sonic facing off. I love how Sonic runs away from Amy. Like, he actually, like, tiptoes to make sure she's not looking. He's just like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Like, the amount of charm and personality put into the tone, the setting, is really interesting, and I really appreciate that. And getting the good ending, as much of a fucking pain in the ass as it is satisfying to get, and the reason why it's so satisfying is because of the stakes, the tone, everything surrounding the levels, how they look, how they feel. It's really, really great. All of that stuff is amazing. And the soundtrack. I already talked about how I'm going to be using bits of the soundtrack from both versions. I really love the Japanese soundtrack, personally. The American one I don't like as much, but I still think it's pretty good, and I would highly recommend you listen to both soundtracks, but the Japanese one I think is a little bit better. There are some cases where the American one is a bit more fitting in terms of menace and dourness, especially in the bad futures. But I think when it comes to which one's more Sonic-y, I would actually recommend the Japanese soundtrack, because while I don't think it's as good as people say, because a lot of people say Sonic CD's soundtrack is like the best soundtrack of the franchise, and I don't think it's that good. I don't think either soundtrack is that good. I think Sonic Adventure, Unleashed, Colors, and a lot of soundtracks are better. With that said, the Japanese soundtrack is really, really good, and I would highly recommend listening to it. My favorite themes being Tidal Tempest, Stardust Speedway, both versions. And I actually really enjoy the, I especially enjoy the, what is it, crap, there was another piece of music I really enjoyed. I forget what level it's from. I think it might be, I know it's not Metallic Madness, even though I do like that track. It's, future me, put the level on screen, just put footage of it. Sorry about that. I don't remember all of the levels by name, because some of them are, I haven't played CD in a while. Which is funny, because I'm talking about it now, but, last time I played it was, like, a little earlier this year, before Sonic Origins came out. But yeah, with that said, I love the soundtrack. I like both, but the Japanese one is much better. You'll be listening to the soundtrack throughout this entire video in the background, so I'm not really going to do a musical, thing where I show you a bunch of tracks I enjoy. You don't really need it in this instance, because I'm going to be playing music in the background, so I'll save that for next time. With that said, yeah, Sonic CD, its tone, its atmosphere, the soundtrack, the setting, the story, all of that is excellent, and I absolutely adore it. Another reason why I enjoy Sonic CD is, well, the gameplay. It's classic Sonic. It's classic 2D Sonic. There's really not much else to say. And with the better physics to actually make it play like Sonic 1 and 2 and 3K, and not the botched ones from the original release, I can actually enjoy it. Thing is, despite that, Sonic CD is still definitely one of the lesser classic Sonic games. In fact, I would even play other 2D Sonic games over it. Not even just like Mania, 3K, and Sonic 2. I would even say I would play Sonic Advance over it. I would even say Generations is better, even just, classic Sonic from Generations. Hell, there are other 3D titles I would play over it. Hell, I'll even actually probably play Sonic Rush over it, even though I'm not too hot on Rush either, but I'd probably play some of the Rush games over it, It's one of those where Sonic CD is a game that I play from time to time, but I don't go back to it nearly as much as the other classic Sonic games, except Sonic 1, because Sonic 1 sucks. I'm gonna make so many people mad with this retrospective, it's gonna be great. The reason why I don't like CD as much is because its level design is very sloppy. I like how creative it is, I like some of the creativity with the platforming, but not all of it really works very well for Sonic. And one of the big problems with CD, especially if you're going for a casual playthrough, is Sonic CD isn't as fulfilling when you're just playing it as a traditional Sonic game. And I mean that in general, not just talking about like, oh, well, you can get the Time Stone to get a more traditional experience. Not really. And I'll explain why, because I did actually try to get all of the Time Stones, and I fucking hated getting them. Not so much just because the special stages, I don't like them, I don't like them, and I'm not good at them, but it's also because getting to them is like Sonic 1, where it's a pain in the ass, where you have to basically hold on to 50 rings. But at least with Sonic 1, the stages were pretty short, and there wasn't really much hindering you, even Labyrinth, as bad as it was, nothing was really hindering you except the water, which just slowed you down. I didn't find getting special stages in Sonic 1 all that taxing. I found the amount of special stages you have, because I think you have, like 10 or so chances? That was really annoying. You have a bit more chances here, thankfully, but it still doesn't feel good, and I'm happy they kind of just dropped this method. I'm happy they switched it with Sonic 2, and especially how they do it in 3K and Mania. I just think searching for a giant ring is the better way to do it. Because, I never talked about how to enter the special stages in Sonic 1. To enter a special stage, you have to have 50 rings, and then at the end of the stage, there's a giant ring. You go into that giant ring, and that's how you enter the stage. In Sonic 1, I didn't mind it too much because there was a plethora of rings, even in stages I don't like. But another reason why I didn't mind it was because Sonic 1's ending isn't drastically changed because of it. Sonic 1 isn't a drastically different game if you don't go for the Chaos Emeralds, it's just slightly different. You have these really ugly flowers in the good ending for Sonic 1. It's like, oh, so special. So it wasn't that big of a deal to me. Sonic CD is a bit different, though, because the entire game hinges on you making a good future. That's the point of the game. So, with getting a good ending being more important and tied to either the Time Stones or the robot generators, yeah, I don't really like either of the methods. Sonic CD is all about exploration. The levels are towers this time. They're not horizontal like they usually are. They're basically giant towers stacking on top of each other. If you play the game just going for the bad ending, it's not going to be as satisfying. The ending's not going to be quite as good because Dr. Eggman technically still won. And on top of it, if you play it like a normal Sonic game, the stages are over in less time than the stages in Sonic 1, because you're not going from left to right. You're still going from left to right, but now because the stages are towers, they're over in like 15 seconds. There's not a whole lot of horizontal design like there would be in other Sonic games. Even Sonic Mania, as huge as those stages are, they still have a level of horizontal, like forward, going left to right. Yeah, there's a lot of upper paths, and the stages are huge and complex, but you're still primarily going from left to right, generally speaking. Whereas with Sonic CD, the stages are towers. They're very vertical. And it's because of that all of the interesting stuff, you're just gonna skip over. All of the interesting gimmicks, all of the enemies, or at least most of them, like a good chunk of it, you're just kind of gonna bypass unless you get hit with a spring that sends you backwards, which there's a lot of in CD, and I don't really like that. In fact, one of the issues I have with CD's level design as well is that it's very bouncy, it's very all over the place, it can be very sloppy, very messy. Stardust Speedway, Metallic Madness, and, what was it, Wacky Workbench. Oh god, and, what was it, the second stage, I forget what it's called, but it's the one after Palm Tree Panic when, Amy gets kidnapped, because Amy first appears in this game, and I'll talk about her in Metal later on. I'm not really a fan of those stages as much, because while I don't hate them, I don't really like them much either, because they're so bouncy, and you go all over the place. Stardust Speedway is a stage a lot of people love, and I'm sorry, I do not like Stardust Speedway. I hate it. Like, I think it's a terrible stage. Like, the background blends in with the foreground. I have no idea what's a platform and what isn't a platform. It's just atrocious. Wacky Workbench I don't like either because of how high it sends you. Like, one of the things I hate is that you get sent so high, and then, there's an enemy right there. Boy, it would have been nice to know if there was an enemy there. Then you wouldn't have hit him. That would have been nice, right? And they have, like, a bunch of electric generators that shock you as well, and you can get hit by them when you're launched up as well. I hate that. I hate that so much. You know, it's just one of the reasons why I don't like it as much. I feel like I'm being flung in different directions. I feel more like a pinball. Which is weird because there are pinball elements in the second stage, but you get what I mean. I feel like I'm a pinball. My favorite stage, oddly enough, is the water level, because it doesn't fling me in nearly as many directions. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that it's slower than the others, and so I'm not bouncing around as much. But honestly, Tidal Tempest is probably my favorite stage in the game, which is weird because that's basically Labyrinth Zone, but it's not as bad, and I think it's because the platforming isn't as precise, there's not as much stuff coming after you, it's a much bigger stage, and it is actually somewhat easy to avoid most of the water, but even the water segments aren't that bad because there's so many air bubbles, you're still not that slow. You have the spin dash now, so that makes it a little bit better. Tidal Tempest is actually a pretty good water level. It's actually one of the best in the franchise, in my opinion. Sure, it's not Aquarium Park or a Hydro City, and yes, it's Hydro City, but it's still a pretty good water stage. So that's weird. It also has some of the best music in both the American and Japanese soundtracks. So that's interesting. But yeah, Tidal Tempest is pretty good. I like it. But most of the other stages are usually just way too bouncy, and some of the platforming can be really annoying. I still enjoy going through with them most of the time, but man, they have some shit that just pisses me off. And keep in mind, I said the stages were towers. That means basically if you just hold right to win, you're probably gonna win, because there's basically nothing stopping you. There's only one bottomless pit in the entire game, and it's used for the most annoying section in Metallic Madness, and I hate that segment. The gimmick is basically the bottomless pit. You basically have to use the bumpers in order to guide Sonic out of the bottomless pit and get to the last boss, and it's terrible, and I fucking hate it, and whoever thought that was a good idea, don't do that again. It's one of those games kind of like where if you don't go for 100% completion, you're not going to have a great time. You'll have an okay time, but it's not going to be as fulfilling, but if you go for 100% completion, it's a complete chore. It's sort of one of those things where CD is kind of wants you to play a certain way, but when you don't do that, it's not as fulfilling, and that's something I know some games do, and some games can pull it off well. But CD, I don't think, does that very well, because with CD, you're not really getting much out of the game if you're just, playing it, getting the bad ending, you don't really care about anything else. You're not really getting much out of the game. It's fine, it's okay, it has some okay moments. The Metal Sonic race is iconic and shit. But you're still not getting much out of it. But if you do decide to explore, it's kind of horrible. And this is because there's two ways to get the good ending. The Time Stones, which you just do special stages like in Sonic 1, or you do the other way, the more annoying way, which is get the robot generators. Let me just say this now, if you're going after the robot generators, for any reason, use a guide. Trust me, the good ending is horrible to get via the robot generators. I did it once because I suck at the special stages. I'm not really a huge fan of the special stages in general. I don't really like chasing after the UFOs. I find the hit detection really terrible, and Sonic just doesn't turn as well as he should. Even with the improved frame rate, I do appreciate the improved frame rate, I do, but I still don't like them very much, and getting to them I definitely don't enjoy. See, in Sonic 1, I didn't like getting to the special stages either, but like I said, the good ending isn't that different. And on top of it, You don't have springs that bounce you, like, above so high and you get hit by stuff you can't see coming. That generally isn't a big deal in Sonic 1. The problem with Sonic 1 is that it's slow as molasses, and the level design stops you from taking advantage of Sonic's abilities. That was my problem with Sonic 1. Sonic CD, though, because there's so many springs and bumpers and boosters that send you in a different direction, you just, like, go flying and you just ram into something, which means, oh shit, I lost all of my rings, now I have to collect them all over again. And that means I have to spend more time in the stages. And you only have a certain number of rings, and sometimes, if you accidentally time travel, you might lose access to some of those rings, and it's so annoying. On top of having to hold on to your rings the entire time, because the levels are towers, if you go too high up and you get the amount of rings, well, guess what? You gotta get back down to go to the fucking end of the stage. So now you gotta keep those rings. Better hope you have a shield. And, so yeah, getting to the special stages is annoying because you have to search around for rings and hope to God a spring doesn't send you into an enemy or an electrical field or something like that. And if you get the and you can get the time stones that way, but if you go for the robot generators, it's a complete chore because the robot generators, oh my god, what sucks about them is they're so stupidly hidden. So it's like, get this, there's one in Wacky Workbench where you literally have to go to a crusher, let yourself get crushed, and that will somehow send you into a tube that sends you straight to the animal. The robo machine, the roboticizer, there you go. I don't know what it's called. I call it a roboticizer. So, literally, and that's what time travel is for. Keep in mind, you may have noticed there's, like, past and future signposts. This is because you're meant to use time travel with them. Basically, if you hit a past or future sign, if you keep your speed for a certain amount of time, you time travel. This is kind of annoying because the future signs are everywhere, and you kind of want to avoid them like the plague because you don't want to go into the future. Because you don't just get transported to the past if you get a past sign in the future. Like, if you get a future sign and you time travel accidentally to the bad future, you have to find 2 past signs to go to the past. Because you're in the future. You gotta go to the past to go... You have to get a past sign to go to the present, which would be the past. Then, in the present, get a past sign and travel to the past. You're traveling, like, 2 times at that point. And, you know, getting... there's only so many past signs you can get, so if you waste them all... Because keep in mind, you also... It's not a matter of getting the sign. You also have to keep your speed. Now, thankfully, there are segments that literally, like, basically where there's 2 springs and they send you back and forward, and just repeating the cycle. That's basically an easy way to keep your speed so long as the hit detection agrees with you. And usually in the Christian Whitehead version, it does. But basically, once you have to get the sign, keep your speed for a certain amount of time, and then you can time travel, which is really annoying. I know in Sonic Origins, there's an easy way to circumvent this where you use the drop dash over and over again, because the drop dash doesn't have the spin lock like Sonic 1 and 2 have. But that wasn't the intended design. Now, don't get me wrong, that is an improvement, and you absolutely should do that. But that's not what they intended you to do. They intended you to get the signs, find a place to run around and keep your speed for a limited time, and if you fuck up, you don't just try again. That sign is done. That sign is used. No, you can't go back and use it again. You have to find a completely different past sign. So basically, to get the robot generators, in each act, not zone, act, and I would like to remind you that there are 3 acts per zone. Just like in Sonic 1. So in each act, you have to go to the past, you have to find a past sign, go to the past by running around and keeping your speed for a limited time, then you have to find the robot generator. It could be on the top path, it could be on the low path, you could have to get crushed and wonder which crusher will send you to the pipe that's supposed to send you to the robot generator. You would have to go back to the, like, the bottom portion of the start of the stage that's really easy to miss. Like, I don't know how any of these people found some of these robot generators without a guide. It's absolutely horseshit, which is why most people generally go for the other method, which is the time stones. But again, like Sonic 1, you have to keep your rings. But in this game, springs and bumpers and spikes are all over the place. So if you get hit, you have to recollect all of them. Do you see the problem? So it's like, you either search for the roboticizers, which are, like, impossible to find without a guide, and you have to travel to the past, which can be a goddamn ordeal in and of itself, or you get the time stones, which are really annoying to get, because in some ways more annoying because of CD's level design, because you have to hold on to your rings. So it's either you take one shit route to get the good ending, or you take the other shit route, and I don't really enjoy exploring in Sonic CD sometimes because of it. Yeah, the time stones are infinitely better, but still. Oh, and on top of that, in the Christian Whitehead port, the PS3 version at the very least, you don't have a level select. You don't have that. So if you miss a time stone, you can't just go back and get it. You don't have that option. And Sonic Origins doesn't let you do that either. So basically, if you miss a time stone, you're shit out of luck, and you have to redo the entire game just to get the good ending. That's so dumb. And yeah, I know Sonic CD was made for the Sega CD. It wasn't intended to be this way, but you know, the Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 ports had it, and I know CD was made first, but you think with Sonic Origins they would keep the level select, but no, Sonic Origins got rid of the level select for 1, 2, and only kept it for 3K because 3K had a level select put in. Fuck Sonic Origins. I just, and that's my problem with Sonic CD. The game wants you to explore. It wants you to explore these ginormous towers to get the good ending. And it does feel good when you get that good ending. It really does. And that's my problem with Sonic CD. The game wants you to explore, it wants you to save the world from Robotnik, but the methods of getting the good ending, the much more emphasized good ending, are fucking terrible. So you don't really like exploring, you don't like getting the time stones unless you're good at the special stages, but even if you are good at them, unlike me, you still have to get to them, and that's really annoying. And CD's level design, while it's, you know, I do find it enjoyable in some places, it's very messy. There's so many springs and spikes that are just so randomly placed. At times it feels almost thoughtless in where they place some of this shit. I don't want to say they were just copy-pasting shit, but it sort of sometimes seems like they were, and it's kind of annoying, and I don't enjoy that. You know, I also don't really like the special stages. The special stages in Sonic, I didn't talk about the special stages in Sonic 2. I don't know if I talk about them in 3K, but if I don't, I'll talk about them in a separate video. But the special stages of CD, look, I'll admit, the Christian Whitehead version fixed up the frame rate with them and made them a ton better. I still really don't like them very much. I find that they are very annoying, their hit detection's really annoying, and it doesn't help that you really can't retry them. The only way to retry them is if you press start before you're about to fail, and then, you know, go to exit game and then try again, which is really annoying, which is why I really wish there was a level select. But even so, like, even though I can't really cheese it, and yeah, cheesing, you know, it's cheating, I get it, I suck, alright? I'm not saying that they're objectively bad or anything. No, I'm sure if you're good at the special stages, they're good. But as someone who sucks at them and doesn't really care for them that much, you know... And it's why when I got the good ending of CD, I just decided to use a guide. I didn't want to go out of my way to search for the roboticizers, especially ones where they're basically impossible to find, and I just used a guide from SGB, from Some Call Me Johnny, and I was better for it. Now, sure, I need to get better at the time stones, but it's not as if I can fucking practice at them. I don't know. I'm really not a big fan of exploring. Now, to be fair, even if it was given a level select, though, the special stages, they've always been kind of hit or miss. From what I understand, the special stages are generally received much better for the 2012 re-release, the Christian Whitehead version of CD, because of the much better frame rate, the much better draw distance, and they are much better. They run so much better. I still don't like the hit detection. I still feel like there are times where I hit the damn UFOs and it just doesn't work. I still feel like the controls aren't really great. I still feel like I'm fighting against them, you know? That's always been one of the issues I have with these type of special stages, is sometimes it feels like the control is fighting against me. It's a similar problem I have with Sonic Mania's special stage control, and why I don't really like those either. And I get it, the bad control is kind of a point, but fuck that point. I don't like it. You know? Sure, I can get used to it, but, you know, Sonic Mania, it's easier to get used to because you have more chances to experiment with the special stages. Sonic CD doesn't give you that. Not unless you decide to play it over and 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 over again until you get good at them, which some people might do that, but I'm not going to do that. I might do it for Mania, because Mania, I think, is a better game, but not for CD. So yeah, I don't really enjoy playing CD for the good ending much. However, even when you play it with the bad ending in mind, you don't really get the full experience. You still get a decent experience. I don't want to say, like, you get nothing from it. I can still enjoy the game casually enough. Because, you know, at the end of the day, it is still the same gameplay that made Sonic 2 and 3 so fun. And for what it's worth, I still prefer playing it over Sonic 1. There's even some stages I do enjoy going through, just casually. Like, Palm Tree Panic, I think, is pretty fun. Tidal Tempest is pretty fun. Quartz Quadrant, I think it is. That's a pretty okay stage. You know, there's some good levels here. You know, I actually do enjoy the boss fights, kind of, sort of. They're not good, but I like the idea. It's sort of, the boss fight is more so a challenge of getting to Robotnik, and not so much beating the tar out of him and his machines. They're not great, and some of them are just outright laughable. Like the one where he has bubbles around him, and that's like, dude, really? You're basically giving Sonic the win. But whatever, you know, some of them are kind of neat. The Metal Sonic fight, it's not even really a fight, it's more of a race. People are pretty split on this one. I'm not really a huge fan of it. I think the spikes are really cheaply placed. Mostly just because they stop you on a dime. It's not even the spikes themselves that hurt you, that's the problem. It's the fact that they're placed in a way that stops your momentum, which is really annoying. So I'm not really a fan of that boss fight. The final fight is pathetic, regardless of if you get the time stones or not, because it's literally just you have to hit him 5 times. It's really, really lame. So, you know, the boss fights are kind of hit and miss, but I kind of like them. They're an interesting idea. I'd like to see it explored in maybe like a Mania 2, just not shit like it was done here. And that's why I'm sort of, you know, at the end of the day, though, despite all of my complaining, I do like Sonic CD. The reason I do is because of its ambition, its atmosphere. No shit, on a casual playthrough, I do like going through, you know, the bad and good futures, just to see them. I really enjoy the gameplay, because at the end of the day, it is still Sonic gameplay. And, you know, there are moments where I do think the level design is really good. There are levels I enjoy. Hell, I enjoy, like at least 3 of the zones. That's more than I enjoy in Sonic 1. But it is kind of the reason why I'm kind of split on CD, and why I don't really love it, you know? Like, I think it's an okay game. You know, it's okay, but I'm not going to come back to it nearly as much as other games. There's actually another Sonic game that's somewhat like what Sonic CD tries to do, but I think in some ways does it better, which I'll talk about later in the retrospective. Way later. and it's a 3D Sonic game, kind of, sort of. But yeah, Sonic CD, I like it. I don't think it's as bad as the people who hate it say it is, because I know there's a lot of people who, like, really hate the game, who think it's just trash. I think it's okay. I do understand why a lot of people hate it, and I don't think it's the masterpiece it was built up to be before it was widely available, and people kind of started seeing the problems of the game. Me, personally, I think Sonic CD is just okay. You can have some fun, there's some fun stages, there's some fun iconic moments, and it did introduce two of the most popular characters, Amy and Metal Sonic, which I said I'd talk about. I like Amy in this game. I find her kind of adorable, and I find her kind of funny, mostly because she doesn't talk. I mean, I don't hate Amy. I like Amy for the most part, but man, when they just play her crush on Sonic as just the only thing to her character, oh my god, she can be unbearable. But yeah, you know, here she's okay. She's fine. You know, she's cute. I really like how she runs around and chases Sonic, and Sonic is just kind of like, fuck off. You know, I don't want anything to do with you. I kind of wish, while she was, like, tied up to the pole after the Metal Sonic race, you could leave her behind and just be a pure dick. But no, you can't do that. Sonic's too much of a goody two-shoes, I suppose. And I really like Metal Sonic as a rival to Sonic. He's not my favorite rival. I actually prefer Shadow. And in some ways, Silver, kinda, sort of. But I like Metal Sonic as a rival, because with Metal Sonic, it's basically the opposite of Sonic, you know, whereas Sonic was, you know, cool and positive and energetic and full of life, Metal Sonic is just this silent, metallic killing machine, and that's what made him so cool, and he's basically the antithesis to Sonic, in every way. Hello, Kai. Would you want to say hi? It's my cat. But still, that's what I like about Metal Sonic. So yeah, Metal Sonic's cool. I like Amy enough when she's not played for a joke. So, you know, it's kind of neat. It's an important milestone in Sonic's history, and I respect it for that. Hell, I even like portions of the game. But yeah, that's sort of my opinion on Sonic CD. Casually, I think you're not getting the full experience, unfortunately, if you play it casually, but you still get a experience, just not the greatest experience. It's just sort of an okay one with some good levels here and there and a phenomenal soundtrack. But if you do go for 100%, it becomes really annoying. And, you know, there are ways to make it better. My cat's going into a bag. There are ways to make it better, but it's still like, you know. Again, it's why Sonic CD is just okay for me, you know, but the game, when you play it as a traditional Sonic game, it's okay. It's just okay, though, but it's kind of, you know, it's kind of just flies by. But when you go for everything, it's annoying as fuck. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Sonic CD. It's okay. It's not as bad as people say it is, but it's not as good as people say it is. It's just kind of like, it's just okay. It's okay. It's okay.